Hello and welcome to week 16 of the Advanced Half Distance Training Plan from Scientific Triathlon. I hope you're doing good and that training is still going well and you're still enjoying it. This week we're switching things up slightly even though we're still in our aerobic capacity block. Volume comes down a little bit with 15 hours this week, down from 17 hours. The range here is anywhere from 13 hours 50 to 17 hours 25, depending on how you choose to do with optional workouts and adjustable duration workouts. When I said we switch things up slightly, the thing that we're doing here is that we don't do these longer interval workouts like 4-minute intervals and 2 to 4 minute intervals on the 5-minute intervals, on the run, but rather we switch to kind of a short format with short intervals with short recoveries in the swim, bike and run. And for example, on the bike, you can see here the Wednesday workout is 30 seconds hard, 15 seconds easy, repeat that 10 times, and then you do 2 more blocks of that essentially to explain the format of the intervals and how it differs from what we did in previous weeks. And the reason that we haven't done that before is that generally speaking, although there is conflicting evidence, it seems to be that the evidence that exists favors longer intervals to gain more adaptations, but it's also slightly more taxing. So that's where shorter intervals come into play. They form a good balance between adaptation and recovery. But in addition to that, I think it's important to point out that when you have really short intervals like these, you can go at a higher intensity, and that allows you to recruit even more fast twitch fibers that might otherwise go unused and sort of sit out the entire season if you never use them. So that's what we don't want to do, because all the fast twitch fibers can have a role to play even in a long endurance sport like triathlon and long distance triathlon. So that's a reason to every once in a while make sure that they get to play, so to say, and can come out and join the others. And that's why short intervals can be useful, just because the intensity is high there, even if it's for a short duration. So this week I would say that the interval workouts are hard, but they are slightly easier than to do long intervals like 4-minute intervals and the like. Plus, with volume being down, this week should be a little bit easier than the last few weeks have been. There won't be a massive difference necessarily, but a small one. And the first 2 days of the week as well are really, really easy days, just to allow you to recover from the training you've done, the intensity you've done, and get you ready for one last push of intensity with 4 interval workouts in the last 5 days of this week. So don't feel any hesitation if you feel tired or that you would benefit from just as much rest as possible to skip that optional ride on the Monday. And similarly about shortening variable duration workouts later in the week if you feel that that's something that you need to do. One thing to point out here is that rather than having simply one interval workout in each discipline, in swimming, biking and running, we actually have 2 bike interval workouts with Wednesday and Sunday. And the reason for this is that we are basically in the last push for advancing aerobic capacity specifically in this current block of training, so to say. And I think that you can do it. I think most people following this plan and having followed this plan to this point are able to go through this. That being said, however, if you think that might be pushing it a bit too much for you, then feel free to change the Sunday bike interval workout for an endurance ride instead. But yeah, if you practice intensity discipline as normal and get your daily habits of sleep and nutrition right, and don't do anything silly in training, then most people following this plan will actually be able to do all 4 interval workouts of this week. Of that I am quite certain. So let me see here if we have anything else to discuss before we go into the workout highlights. I'm just scrolling through my notes here. Apologies. But I don't think that there is anything other than that. So we'll just discuss a couple of workout highlights. So as I mentioned, the first couple of days really, really easy. Treat them as such. Go really, really easy. That's what you should do if you go at all when we talk about the optional ride here on Monday. Then to discuss the short intervals, let's look at the bike here first. So we already looked at it a little bit. So it's a block that is 7.5 minutes long, consisting of 30 seconds at 120 to 130% and 15 seconds of just easy spinning essentially. Then resting for 8 minutes and then another block, and then repeating that one more time. And this is, it might look like 120 to 130% is not that much for 30 seconds, and you might be tempted to push it quite a bit harder. I would encourage you to go through this first block, this first 7.5 minutes at the prescribed intensity range, so 120 to 130%, and see how that feels. Can you still pedal in the recoveries, and can you hit the intensity target in all of these intervals, not just in the first and second, but in the 9th and 10th as well? Because it's easy to feel at the beginning of a workout like this that you could go way harder, but actually with the short recoveries, this catches up to you, and you would be surprised by how tough it can be by the end. So yeah, apply some pacing there, and then if you still feel that you're not getting the challenge that you should be getting, then of course you can increase the pace here. But again, for most triathletes, I think being somewhere in the 120 to 130% of FTP range is going to be appropriate here. And on the run, things are looking quite well. Looking at the other bike first, it's essentially a very similar or identical bike ride, but instead of 30 seconds on, 15 seconds off, and repeating that 10 times in each block, the blocks are now 9 minutes long, and it consists of 9 repetitions of 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off. On the run, similarly, I would encourage you to think about pacing and not go out like a bat out of hell the first few reps, because that might cost you later. Keep in mind how many of these you will be doing. You'll be doing 18 minutes of really hard work, to be specific, and that's quite a lot. Probably for many of you, it will be 5 kilometers or more of work. And so pace them sensibly. And then if you feel after the first block, for example, that was very easy, I can go harder, then by all means do that. But nominally, we're looking at 30 seconds at 108% to 112% of your threshold pace. And then the recovery is kind of in zone 1 or low zone 2, and that is 30 seconds. And we're doing 12 times 30-30 because, on the run, first of all, we're only doing 1 interval workout rather than 2 that we do on the bike. So we want to push it a little bit more. But also simply because we have longer recoveries, so we can do a little bit more because the time between intervals is twice the length than it was in the 30-15 ride that we first looked at. And then finally in the pool, we're doing 50s, and we're doing quite a lot of them now with 1500 meters of work. So 10 times 50, best average effort, 200 easy, 8 times 50, best average effort, 200 easy, and so on. And here, since you are doing so much work, again, pacing becomes really important. It's really tempting in the swim especially to go out really, really hard, and then you might be like 3 seconds slower than you were for the first 50, and that is for 50, then after a while than you were at the beginning. And you don't want that to happen. You want to be steady, and you want to be, sorry for the message there, interrupting. You want to be steady, and you want to be able to finish strong, not necessarily any stronger. You want to feel like you have a couple of reps in the tank, no more, no less, but that's it. So keep that pacing in mind and work your way into the workout. There's nothing wrong with the first 4 or 5 repetitions being slightly slower than what you end up doing for the rest of them, if that's what it takes. 50 meters in the pool, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it can be a lot when you're really, really tired. So this one in particular, I would encourage you, if you're not a swimmer especially, the swim is always that much more challenging. Keep that in mind, and use good pacing skills, but while also, of course, going hard. All right, but the rest of the work is really kind of easy work, short work, endurance work. Nothing in particular to talk about there, other than, again, be sensible with duration based on where you are and what you feel you need, how well or not well recovered you are at the moment. You can take recovery if you need it. That's why we are doing these adjustable duration workouts. So feel free to do so. And if nothing else, I wish you a great week of training, and I'll talk to you next week.